Okay, first, a word about the cars. The black one is a 1960. The A is a 1959, and I'm a 1931. Now, the cars have been restored to an AAA plus standard, and I'm in need of a full rotisserie restoration myself. However, a spoiler alert, I am not 88, not until November. The A, well, it was the smoothest, I think the smoothest running MGA I ever had the pleasure of driving. Whoever balanced that thing knew what they were doing. It wasn't all that much off standard, and the parts that were done were for endurance, not necessarily the most power they could have gotten. So it was uh, it was faster than a standard A, but not by much. As far as the way it was set up, carburation, timing, so on, I followed exactly what Sherm Decker told me to say or do. Um, I didn't have time to figure out all those things myself. And for example, Sherm said, pull ahead, lap the valves after every race, change the rod bearings after every third race. Okay, we fine. Never had a problem, finished every race. Um, I drove a to and from each race too. So I had to be kind of careful or I wouldn't have a ride home. The twin cam, that was fun to drive. It was a race car, it's not a street car. The sound was terrific. Around 5,000 it started sounding just like an offie midget. And again, supposedly these cars are very tricky and tough to work with and so on. I Sherm had been racing one for 2 years, so I set it up again exactly the way he said to. And the thing was pretty much dead reliable. Again, it finished every race. It You were talking about that cylinder that got sleeved. It was not a valve problem. One of the snap rings that held the wrist pins in, the little ear that you put the pliers into, the mistake made was to reuse those snap rings, and an ear popped or broke loose and just sat there in the wrist pin hole vibrating against the cylinder wall, and it cut that little groove up and down. And Clayton Kiewasser at United Auto sleeved it. He did a lot of stock cars. Okay, the races. I actually started with a 50 TD. I bought a new 50 TD, boarded an eighth of an inch over, which brought me up to 1325 cc's. I never did bother to figure out what the compression ratio was, but it must have helped. I ran that thing in 52 at Brynfontein, which is Harvey's Lake, Mount Equinox. At that time, that was gravel, and Thompson, which at that point was not the road race, road course. It was a half-mile high-bank paved oval. We ran it Saturday, and the AAA sprints were in there on Sunday. We didn't amount to much on a half-mile racetrack. jumping all, I had, didn't do any more racing till 59 with the Sebring car. It was basically SECA ready, but had a Army surplus seat belt, which was about really the best one thing that was available. And one of those Ray Henley roll bars. Remember the picture of the twin cam frame, that tubular cross member behind the seats or just ahead of the rear axle? It sat down on them, and you took two high quality muffler clamps and clamped it to that tube. For enough to triangulate it, a diagonal arm went off to the side and caught the frame rail, and you drilled a hole through that and put a number 14 sheet metal screw in it. I don't know what would have happened if one of those things were really put to the test. You sure that was conduit or was it exhaust pipe? You think it was conduit? Well, that's, of course, you know how hard it is to bend conduit.
Well, that's why it was conduit.
But it was, that car was dead reliable. I ran mostly regionals because at that time, anywhere from 15 to 25 MGAs would show up and we could have our own race, which that was really fun. I ran the old Lime Rock, Watkins Glen, Berwick, Thompson, and probably some others that I don't remember. Lime Rock was, I think I ran there 4 times that year. It was my favorite track. The hell, I got a page missing here. No, I don't. When I say it's my favorite track, you only braked once a lap, changed gears just twice, once going into the end of the straight corner, and third all the way around until you went down the hill on the straight again, and back to fourth. So it was kind of like running an oval, and that you were flat out all the way. Actually, it was flat out all the way around, except for the braking at the end of the straight. You know, Lime Rock, they still have this restriction on Sunday racing because it bothers the church services. So with a lot of cars showing up, everything had to happen Saturday. Well, that didn't leave time for anything but some practice and then the races. No qualifying. They had a shoebox with scraps of paper in them with a starting number on them. You reached in and grabbed a piece of paper, and that's where you started. Either being up front was best, and second was being in the back. The middle was not good because the first turn usually looked like a junkyard, and you didn't want to get mixed up with that if you could help it. Good lap time for a push rod at that time was 1:15 with the sort of tires we had and so on. In 60 I ran the twin cam. That had a fundamental problem. BMC in their wisdom added 100 cc's to the engine. I don't know why, because it put us up into the 2-liter class. But we were giving away 400 cc's, And if you calculate the horsepower per cc in the stock condition, that's about 25 horsepower that you're giving away. So anytime you were racing with Alphas or Porsches, it was pretty tough. Any kind of decent driver could leave you in the dust. I ran probably sometime, let's hear it, Lime Rock, Watkins Glen, Cumberland, Marlborough, and Dunkirk. Usually top fives. I never won a race with the twin cam. With the push rod, or the 59, I won about half of them. But in the twin cam, good lap time at Lime Rock was 112. Was only 3 seconds faster than the push rod, but it sounded a lot better. As that incident at Marlborough, that Alpha that was ahead of me or alongside me, I never did get by him. I was trying all race, and Duncan Black, who could afford anything, was running one of those Daimler V8s. And this was early days of disc brakes, and Daimler had chosen some pad material that faded to nothing after about 3 laps. So he went like hell at first, but then he was just in the way. Well, I think what happened was he looked in his mirror and he saw us coming, and he moved over to let the Alpha by, because I think he figured the Alpha just passed me. He didn't realize it had a twin cam. So he let the Alpha by and then started for the corner, and and then I had to cuff him out of the way. But he got over it. Did not drive the twin cam to the race. The damn thing wouldn't stay in tune very long, and if you drove 100 miles, you pretty much had to go through it again. It would run fine, but it wasn't. You were giving away those last few horsepower. And let's get down to some of the people. This guy is not a racer, but Hemingway once said, "There are only 3 sports: mountain climbing, bullfighting, and auto racing. The rest are just games." Racers are different. Spanky, I'm the one that got Spanky interested in sports cars, really. I'm sure it would have happened eventually, but when I first met him, I had the TD. And up to that point, he thought he was into street rods. He had a pre-war Hudson convertible. This was before Bondo. He said it had 600 pounds of lead in it. But it was a pretty car. It was really nice. And Spanky never had I don't think he ever wanted to drive or to race, but it was something that it really took him, and he got into it in a big way. I don't know how many people know this, but Spanky took a load of shrapnel in his upper back and neck during the war, and he was totally paralyzed for about 10 days till things began to, I guess, knit back together. Well, they never got all the shrapnel out. I don't know why, the location of it, whatever. And he was bothered by terrific headaches. He didn't use aspirin pills. There was a product on the market called Stanback, Stanbak or something, and it came in a white envelope. It was a powder. You put it in a glass of water and drank that. How many? 2, 3 a day sometimes. I mean, he uh, he was a tough bugger, but I'll tell you, he had a rough life after the war. I got to confess that I don't remember most of the drivers I competed with because I was really just concentrated on the ones who were in front of me. Um, and with the A, I had either the curse or the honor of racing against Booker in the A and Decker in the twin cam. Let me give you a little J. Bob Booker story. He in World War One, two, he was a P-51 pilot based in Italy. Now this is something he related to me, so I'm just telling you what he told me. He flew bomber escorts up to the Ploesti oil fields in Romania back, and it was more of a shuttle run. It was really the only source of crude oil that the Germans had, so they worked on it pretty hard. But as winter came, the Mediterranean area around the middle of Italy, where their base was had really bad fog problems. And sometimes they'd return and they couldn't find their air base. They couldn't see it. And they were reluctant to put out homing signals because German artillery could home in on the same signals or German planes. So they kept quiet. So Bob said we turned west, due west, till we were certain we were over water, and then worked our way down through the fog until we could get underneath it. And then we'd fly back and turn around and go due east back to the Italian coast. And if we weren't sure where we were, we'd split up to go north and south till somebody found the air base. He said it worked okay. The tricky bit was keeping the prop out of the water. Well, and Bob and I raced 3 times. We were 1 and 2 every time. He won twice, I won once. Sherm Decker with a twin cam. He was one tough dude. I never beat Sherm. We were finished 1 and 2 quite often also. But nobody else could beat him either. But it still bothered me. Till a few years later, of course I was out of racing then, but Sherm had been running what the hell do they call them? The Can-Am cars, just monsters to drive. And it's a long story, but he had basically a piece of junk to compete with. He didn't own it, but the car owner was a car dealer, and he had no understanding of what it took to maintain a race car. So Sherm had to be his service manager in a Mercedes dealership, and then maintain this, what was it, a Lola Cooper, just whenever he could. So he hardly ever finished a race because something would break. But he told me they were at Bridgehampton, And Mark Donahue and Jerry Grant, who were running top of the line machinery, I don't know what it was, but it was a lot better than his, were going nuts because they couldn't figure out what Decker was doing. His lap times were better. And he said it got so every time he'd pull in the pits, they'd pull in and wait for him to go out, and then they'd follow him to see where he was making the time, what he was doing.
That might have been with that Lola T70.
Yeah, he. It made me feel better. I was just one more guy that couldn't keep up with Sherm Decker. And here's something that's I'll tell you just an opinion. There are drivers and there are racers. They are not synonyms. I'll give you an example. Back in the late 50s or 60s, there was a AAA sprint car race in the Midwest, probably Ohio or Kansas. One of those high bank paved tracks, half mile. Sunday afternoon, and I don't remember the driver's name. The first one out lost it on the back straight, in through the fence and over down the bank, dead. Second guy out was Cecil Green. I saw him a few times at Syracuse in the champ cars. Beautiful driver to watch, just as smooth as cream. Goes out, does his warm-up lap, loses it on the back straight, over the fence and killed. Third car up is Dwayne Carter. Anyone remember him? How about Pancho Carter? He was Pancho's father. Dwayne Carter went out, took his warm-up lap, took the flag, set a lap record. That's a racer. Sherm Decker was a racer. And to those of you who are still awake, thank you for your kind attention.
Well, you don't get off that easy. You don't get off that easy. That one of the things that people wanted discussed was Jake Stable and how is it on? Okay. What Jake Stable was, how it began, and I know that basically Bob Booker, J. Robert Booker, had the two 120 Jags, which he called Little Jake, and he got the Allard, which was Big Jake.
Big Jake.
And after that became Spanky. Kind of came up with the Jake Stable routine, the Jake Stable logo, based on the Ferrari prancing horse.
Well, I think that was Spanky's.
That was
His idea.
I think it was Spanky's idea as well.
Yeah.
But there's more to that story, I know, than that. And I was wondering if you could perhaps fill in some of that.
No, I don't think I can.
Okay.
Well, after I ran the first race at Lime Rock with the A, I finished second. But a car driven by a guy named Lorenzetti had just disappeared. And somebody protested him. And he wouldn't tear down, so he was disqualified. So I became first. And when I pulled into the Rusty Brady's driveway, Spanky was there and wanted to know what had happened. I told him. and he immediately put a Jake Stable sticker on the car, and I was proud as hell. But other than that, I can't really give you anything about the beginnings of that.
Okay. Well, I don't have much. I do have a list of Jake Stable drivers. It was kind of a subgroup, I guess. People put BARC and Jake Stable together, but they really were not. They were two
No.
totally separate issues.
They had one common thing, though. You couldn't join either one. You couldn't apply to either one. You were informed I
That you
suppose.
were a member.
Yeah, yeah, or
Whether you liked it or not.
yeah. Well, look what happened to Graham Hill.
That's right. Yeah, Graham Hill was a one-time member of BARC, and he was thrown out for gross inactivity because he wouldn't come to the annual meeting.
Yeah, one meeting a year and he couldn't show up. Some damn race somewhere, I don't know.
Dan, you had some questions, I think.
Well, Ted, thanks for answering the question about the sleeve cylinder, and now the Duncan Black thing is cleared up. I want to talk more about Jake Stable, because, you know, being a newcomer to this, we were always told that the prancing donkey was a irreverent reference to the Ferrari team and others, because nobody could figure out how you guys could go so fast in little MGAs. And we're accused of, and I know there's a lot of different events here that I might be melding together, but you're accused of cheating, and a lot of the big teams with big money would always say we wanted your cars tore down, and it was kind of a way of thumbing your nose to the establishment. And that might be just a little bit of folklore that has kind of become embellished over the years, but I think it's really, there's a grain of truth to that way down in. You want to kind of elaborate on that? Is it
No.
way off?
No. I don't know if we ever got protested. I didn't. Well, my wife did teach our parakeet to say Sherm Decker cheats, but so that was more to give a little twist to Sherm than the truth. Sherm didn't have to cheat.
I had a quick question for you. What got you back into racing after you took some time with the TD? Why did you decide to hop back in for those 59 and 60 seasons?
Oh, well, you know, you've just put out something about that Calicoon, right? That was 53, right? The summer of 53? Well, yeah. Well, I spent the summer of 53 on the Jersey Shore at Fort Monmouth, so I had a 2-year oh, we got an English major over here. So I was in the Army for 2 years. I got out and, you know, decided I had to get married. I don't know why, but anyway, I did. And I finally got things back together and gave it 2 good years. And it became increasingly difficult to get money and time to coincide with, there were kids around then. And at that time, I don't know how it is today, but if you mentioned motor racing, you couldn't buy life insurance. It was just out of the question. They wouldn't even talk to you. Didn't matter how much you wanted to pay. So that led to my early retirement. Well, no, I wasn't a kid anymore either.
But what sparked your interest to get back in '59?
That's something I'd always wanted to do. I got a chance to do it.
Now the Sebring car over there came through Morris Garage.
Yeah.
How do you recall coming across it, or knowing it was for sale, or
I think Sherm told me, hey, I think we had an A coupe. I ran once at Lime Rock with it. Anyway, the next season would have been the 51 coming up, and Sherm told me that they had this, really nice race car. So that's how I got it.
now in the '59 season you mentioned because he was spot on. He raced it 8 times because the advertisement when he was through racing it in Sports Car magazine said raced 8 times for first place, and the 3 of those I believe were Lime Rock and 1 at Berwick. And I believe the Berwick race was the one time you beat a gentleman by the name of J. Robert Booker.
Yeah.
So tell us about that race.
Berwick was a tank test track, believe it or not. There was a company in that area, Allentown somewhere, that made tanks during the war, and they built about a 1 mile track, a kidney-shaped thing, to test tanks, to see if they ran, I guess, like a new car coming off the assembly line. Will it run or won't it? So they tested them. If they performed, off they went. So, but it hadn't been used for anything, I don't think, before that race in years. And, blacktop exposed to sunlight, the tar begins to evaporate, and pretty soon the color changes, and it's got just little points of stone sticking up. That track had more grip than any track I've ever run on. It was just incredible. And unlike Booker, I was running Goodyear Blue Streaks, and he was running the original Michelin X, which, well, they were difficult. They were difficult to slide because it would be grip and grab, grip and grab. Decker was one of the few guys that could keep up with him. I followed him into what was the Big Bend on whatever the course was in '60. I think it's the Wellington Road now. But it was a sharp right. It's the end of a long straight, and it was banked. And Sherm, he had to put his hand at the top of the steering wheel. He was doing this. 180 degrees, the front wheels were doing this. Keeping up, when it gripped, he'd pull it. When it slid, he did this. I don't think I could have done it. Well, that's what Booker was faced with at Berwick, that kind of grip. And, I was worried about finishing because I had so much fun in practice. I'd about worn out my tires. The wear pattern on the back was what you'd see on the back of a sprint car running on pavement with those old narrow tires before they went to the big ones. Usually those old Baranis, they were getting tired, even though they were 72 spoke instead of 48. But typical weekend I'd break 3 or 4 around the car, whichever wheel. After practice at Berwick, I had 8 broken ones in the left rear. Plus the clutch was slipping. at starting out. Once I got up to speed, and I didn't have to shift at Berwick. It didn't let go, but between the tires, the spokes, and the tires, or the clutch, my concern was finishing. Actually, it was the easiest race I ever ran because I didn't have to run flat out the whole way. I built up a lead and then started slowing down, taking it easy for about 3 or 4 laps. When the gap closed down, I'd turn a quick one and repeat the process. The track was flat out all the way around with the MG, and there was one spot where if you lifted going into a corner, it killed the lap, and I could take it flat out. But every chance I got, I didn't do it. So, as I say, it turned out to be the easiest race I ever ran. Because usually with the MG, you were behind something. We ran with alphas, and they weren't even in the picture. So, as I say, that we raced each other 3 times. We split it 2 and 1.
So I got a question. You said there was only a couple seconds difference. You were talking about lap times at Lime Rock. A couple seconds difference between the push rod MG and the twin cam. I was kind of wondering if that was more engine or more braking, because I mean, were the brakes, the 4-wheel discs on the twin cam, that much better than a push rod? Is that why the lap times were better, or was the engine just more powerful?
No, it was power.
It was all engine, not
yeah.
braking.
Yeah, it was 3 seconds faster. But after a 10-lap race, that's 30 seconds. But yeah, the only place you braked was at the end of the straight. Hit it and then turn right and flat out the rest of the way around. Come on, guys, I'm running out of lies here.
About question and answer.
Anybody got, how about from the audience? Okay, here.
Back in '76, I bought my first TD. A few years later, I wound up answering an ad in Hemmings for a low-mileage MGA. I bought that car, and as a result of that, I got to know Clark Morris and Hugh Francis. Clark Morris is the surviving son of Gordon Morris, who had the garage. Hugh Francis worked in the garage from day one, basically. So I got to know those people. A few years later, Clark called me and asked if I would like to clean out a barn that he had. And this is a copy, but I got the original records from the Morris garage. Those records when to get in context with the subject that was going on here, Sherm Decker, okay?
Can we back up a second? Are you Carl Meyer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carl Meyer, everybody.
Okay.
On the phone a while.
Right. Clark called me, and I went down and cleaned out this barn, and in a stack of paperwork, there were these original records. And a few years ago, there's a Yahoo group on the internet that's devoted to the twin cams. And that group was discussing, do any of Sherm's cars still exist. They wanted to know if they were still around. No one knew the serial numbers or anything. But with that in mind, I checked the old records that I had, and in the back of the original book that I had gotten, there was a record that shows double overhead cam, black, red, YD3 2319, Sherm Decker. So we identified the car. I put that information on the internet and got an email back from Bob West. He is a MG restorer in England, and he has the car. And he does plan on, he's finishing a restoration. I emailed him a short time before this trip, and the car is presently in storage, but he is restoring it, and he hopes to bring it back to the States. So hopefully we will see that car along with 2359. Another page of that record, double overhead cam, MG, black, YD3 2459, the subject car here, in the records. Went to Stickley and Rounds, this gentleman, $2686.80 was its cost. And the engine number is here also. So I thought you people might like to know that Sherm Decker's one car still exists. What happened to the red one, no one knows. If anyone here knows, it would be helpful. But anyway, I thought maybe that would be interesting for the group.
One of the wonderful things about this this talk and what you put on here at the center, that's fantastic. One thing I wanted to mention that the race that Ted talked about at Berwick, if whoever's going back over to look at the cars, I brought the beautiful platter that Mr. Rounds was kind enough to donate to me to keep with the car, and we can show it with him and with the car if we go back over after this. Anybody got anything else?
No, you must have something to come on.
Come on up, Joe Tierno. Come on up.
Just gonna be quick. No, it just. Oh, okay. It just involves the Jake Stable sticker, and it's true. It was fashioned after the prancing horse, but apparently, we know by now, tricksters, guys like Spanky, even Mr. Rounds, some of those guys. Well, they went to Sebring with the Aston Martin, and they had the Jake Stable sticker on it, and which seemed to annoy Luigi Canetti, because he came over and gave it a good going over and was, according to Spanky, was not pleased. So I think that was a major success for Jake Stable that took off the Ferrari importer.
Dan did a wonderful talk about his car, and I'll just take a couple seconds to talk about. Oh, go ahead. We've got another question.
It occurred to me when you were talking about the 48 to 52 races and the number of MGs, a lot of those were TDs. What were the ages of those cars, if you could speak to that, when they were raced? How many of those that raced were brand new cars? Because I don't think that was typically very common. And then when the A's were first into production, what was the price increase over the rest of the previous generation MGs at the time? If you can speak to that step up in not only technology but the price of entry and for the racers.
Is that for me or is that for Ted?
Well, I paid $18.50 for my TD in 1950. And that was, a TC, a 48 TC was about $4,500. But the British were forced to devalue the pound, and they devalued it about 50% or more. So the TD was half the price of a TC. The A wasn't that much more, 21, 2200.
That's about the price point that I can remember off the top of my head. I guess we had 2660 or so for the twin cam when those came out.
Yeah.
You got the
that-
certainly the
just
sweeter
think.
motor and the four-wheel disc brakes.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that many different components. Today, a car of a comparable difference to the standard is twice as much.
Yeah.
You know, the $30,000 car becomes a $51,000 car real quick.
As to your question about running them new, I mean, that's pretty much what they did back then. I mean, you talk to Ted about driving it to the track and driving it and racing it and driving it home. I've heard numerous stories of the same from Lavender Hill Mob, members back in Marlboro area. That was just what they did. I mean, you look at some of these BART Gazettes that are all scanned and here at the library, all sorts of talks or articles about how they rallied for a day or 2 days, 24-hour rallies and overnight rallies, and that was just the culture. And back then, that was some people's everyday car. Anything else? Did we cover it well?
Just a kind of a question. Carl Stickley was involved with photographs and photography and things like that. How did he get involved with the race car and buying the twin cam, and how was Bark associated with Carl?
Ted knows.
Yeah. Carl, like lots of people, became interested in sports cars and so on. And been seeing them race, heard about it. He wasn't a member of anything until after he bought the car. We didn't want any people like him, but he approached me about a deal where he wanted to buy the car if I would drive it and maintain it. Well, sounded good to me.
Anything else?
As Carl and BRC, he never really participated in much of the goings on. He just didn't have that kind of personality. Getting 12, a case of beer and this and that, and it just wasn't him.
So I'm wondering, we're lucky to have Dave Zitch with us today, and I always was under the impression that Carl Stickley helped out with photos for the BART Gazette. I mean, so he was involved in that, wasn't he?
Yeah, Carl was very generous with his photo business. He gave us tons of black and white snapshots that we carefully taped into every single BART Gazette that we mailed out. So Carl was a big benefactor in the in the visual part of the Gazette.
Did he print the Gazette for you? No.
One other Carl Stickley story that I was one of his drivers, one of his delivery drivers, and he had the neatest, I can't remember what they were, but we sure beat the hell out of them. But one other BART Gazette story was that when I was stationed in Stuttgart in the Army, I went to the Grand Prix of Monaco, and it was a lot different time there. So at the end of the race, I gathered up some of the straw from the hay bales, mailed them back to the Zitchy guy, and everybody who got a BART Gazette had hay bales from the 1964 Grand Prix of Monaco. And one of the things I brought back is, if you remember Princess Grace, she was there. And so I went up to the reviewing stand and I stole a leaf off of the whatever was there, the victory wreath or whatever it was, and I found it just the other day. So if anybody would like a leaf from the 1964 bouquet of flowers attended to by Princess Grace, you're welcome to it. Unless the research center wants it, but I don't know.
One of the exciting things about the Gazette was you never knew what you were going to find it. This one that I happened to pick up at home yesterday, in it is Daytona International Speedway. Is it on? Yeah, it is. From the Daytona International Speedway in 1966. So someone obviously was there. I didn't. From Spanky. Spanky must have gone to Daytona, and in the Gazette is that sticker. There were also, as I was looking through them yesterday at home, a number of them, and they had real dash plaques, brass dash plaques. They were falling out all over the place. It's just fabulous. So you never knew what you were going to get when you opened up your Gazette. And it was a wonderful thing that David did there.
How big did the group get?
Well, we had a couple of, there was a basic constitutional issue. So we could only have 20 members. But we found a nice political way around that by creating an associate membership. And an associate membership carried all of the rights and privileges of being a real member, because there weren't any rights and privileges anyhow. So that didn't work or didn't hurt. So we probably ended up, I don't know. Give me a guess. How many do you think? Yeah, I know. Yeah, there were. Yeah, we did pride ourselves in
The
the lack of
associate
organization.
members did get a break on the dues, though, didn't they?
Well, there weren't any. Yeah, so they did get a break on the dues, because we didn't have any of them either. But no, I really don't think anybody ever counted it. I really don't.
Any more?
Any more? Well, listen, this has been totally enjoyable. Well, Michael, you have something?
Yeah, I guess before we wrap up, I'll give you a 2-second rundown on the white car, because I didn't do a presentation like Dan did, because I didn't realize we were going to have such a crowd, and I thought it would just be a walk around the car talk. But it is the factory 57, or David Ash factory backed entry 57 car. The reason Ted probably thought it ran so sweet, it had a Genuine Works Sedaniver EX motor in it, and still does to this day. Few extra things done to it, extra indirect shocks up front. Very, if you're MG geek, take a look at the oil cooler on that car. It was very special, similar to the ones they used in the Le Mans cars of 55. Very, very rare item. Other than that, set up pretty much as people started to race them with close ratio gears, 455 rear. The endurance tank was made at Inskip.
How much did that hold? How many gallons would that hold?
Mr. Zitch says it was about 25 gallons, and that seems to be about right. I think I've filled it all of once. I don't keep it full, but it also had, it doesn't have them on it today, but I do have a set of the Barani wire wheels. Those were very difficult to come across. It took me years, and I finally had to, after years of trying to find the correct ones, I had to get Barani to make two because after 7 years of searching, I found 2 of them. But those aren't on the car today because they were mounted with Dunlop racing tires, which last time I took the car out, I collected so much road debris I could just hear them just sandblasting my mud guards back there. Let's see. The car had a great history with Bark. It's featured in a number of these gazettes. I'm so thankful for Mr. Zitch for featuring it in there and its history in there. And Mr. Zitch was the next owner after this guy here, so it had a long history with the club before it was found by noted collector Jerry Gogan. And I bought it out of Jerry Gogan's collection when he was dispensing his collection before he passed. I've just been fortunate to meet these guys, know these guys, and another guy that needs a big shout out is the big guy over here in the hat, who helps me wrangle it back and forth a lot of places we go. I've got to match Dan Fadden's 2 a.m. story, because he and I, when we brought it here in 2004, this is my proud, I'm going to cry, Dan moment. When you saw that last picture in my presentation of me and David Ash bringing that thing down Main Street for the 2004 50th anniversary Collier reunion, we like Dan had been working at it. I got it back, body on the frame, in August of '04. No motor in it, nothing, straight from the body shop. And between August and September of the Glen, that car got back together with the help of my MG Car Club friends down in D.C., that guy, and my father at the time, and he's still my father, but unfortunately late. We rolled in here that night, and we were having, I can't remember what issue, but the seats weren't in the car yet. We were still having some issue, I think, with brakes, and we got here. David Ash was here, and the man who drove it at Sebring for 6 of the 12 hours, and it got to be the NAMGAR presentation. Both Miss Bucher and Miss Decker were there for the first presentation of the Bucher-Decker Cup, and so we had to obviously make an appearance there. And anyway, it got to be, we're working on the car till like 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I go up to tell David, I'm like, David, we're going to have to do this parade lap, and I'm sorry, in my Suburban and the car on the trailer. He's like, if we were at Sebring and we had a difficulty, we would work through the night to get that car on the track in the morning. And he and I looked at each other, we're just like, we know what we got to do. And so we worked till a little after 2 a.m. and got that car on the track to do those parade laps of the old course. And anyway, with that, I will try to wrap this up so we can get back over there and take a look if any of you guys would like to look some more. Thank you all for coming. You guys are fantastic.
Again, I want to second it. Thank you very much for coming in. Thank you for our panel, Michael, Dan, Gordy, and 87-year young Ted Rounds. And I think one other thing we've learned today is MG stands for more grins, because I've seen a lot of grins in this audience today. So thank you all for coming. We have refreshments back in the center. Come on back, have something to eat, and hang out with these guys. Thanks.